Here we go.
You may have seen today's guest on CBS 48 Hours and or CNN Primetime with Nancy Grace, among other media appearances, as well as his own YouTube channel. He's also been featured in the gripping show Dark Minds on Investigation Discovery. I'm Ann Angela Webb, and on the Animal Intuitive channel, we talk about all things to support animals, including pet parent wellness and their interests. And today, our guest, who has profiled criminals in over 100 cases, including high profile ones like the Green River Killer and the Golden State Killer, he will be talking about his vast experience and expertise and provide valuable insight into how potentially we can help protect animals and maybe ourselves from becoming victims of crime. So stay tuned for more. I would like to welcome renowned criminal profiler, psychotherapist, addiction specialist, and animal lover, JohnKelly.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all well. Thank you for inviting me into your house, and
Thank you.
I hope you're going to enjoy the show. I truly appreciate you having me on because I really like animals, and of course, you're always a pleasure to talk to. So it's very nice.
Oh, thank you so much. We're so happy to have you here. I am going to be checking in with the chat too. So I just want to say hello to Jory and Melmac. Thank you so much for being here. And always appreciate you here, Melmac, because Melmac helps me out as a mod. And if you're watching this on the replay, let us know if you have any questions. Then we can follow up. But please feel free to, if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat during the live stream too, and I will be checking in on those. All right. So, John, we're all, a lot of us here, not all of us, but a lot of us have a specific interest in, protecting animals and also a dual interest for many in true crime. So, I just was
Mhm.
wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be a criminal profiler. Oh, did you lose me? You couldn't hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, we're just wondering how you came to be a criminal profiler.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, a psychotherapist, social worker, addiction specialist in Jersey. And I was doing a lot of research on low self esteem, low self worth back in the day, many, many years ago. And as I started to do my research, first with in addiction, started to wonder how much low, because of course we know they're so they
Oh,
think they're so superior.
we had a little bit of a
Okay.
delay there, so we missed a little bit about what you said, but
Um, is there any way do you think I can change that, or
I don't know. It may just be sometimes the wires just get filled up, I think, or that's not a good way of putting it, but too many people sometimes on at once, like not necessarily where you are, but like in general. It could just be interference during the day, but because of a lot of traffic, but hopefully it'll warm up and get better.
so anyway, the my folks who the narcissistic person or serial killer in this case, believes they're superior to other people, and usually people that feel they're superior, are really inferior, have this inferiority complex. How much they thought about themselves early after going through exactly how much of a role that played in them becoming women.
So I hear what you're saying. We're getting a little bit of again, a little bit of a delay, but basically, I think what you're saying is that in your background as a clinical social worker, just kind of getting to know some of these people and then bringing that into your profiling work, noticing their history and
Mhm.
maybe how empty they are and how much their childhood played into it. But go ahead. It looks like you're back here.
Yeah, of course, I believed that an addiction. I was the first one to bring that out because if you talk to most serial killers, they say they can't stop.
Okay.
If you can't stop using cocaine, you're a cocaine addict. If you can't stop killing people, then you're addicted to killing. Okay. So, and all the power and control that comes along with that. So I decided to put a team together and to add a new piece to the psychological behavioral profiling, and FBI included, and see if we could come up with an addiction profile and add that into the psychological behavioral and maybe have a much better these killers and trying to catch them in a shorter period of time. Because a lot of these guys are not easy to catch. It takes a while, and you have to really know where to hunt for this type of animal. It's a very vicious person. Um, I've researched Henry Lee Lucas, John Wayne Gacy. I corresponded with over the phone. Or I'm sorry, corresponded with through back in the day. And, Keith Hunter Jesperson, serial killer out of Washington. Definitely, I had a lot to do with him and talk with him over the phone. We even had him on Dark Minds. Um, so I mean, these guys pretty much really have no guilt, no remorse, and actually could care very little animals. Now, another reason that drove me into this once I started to figure out this could be an addiction is because I'm a recovering cocaine addict for many years, one day at a time. And I wrote a book. It's called Discovering Lazarus. And Discovering Lazarus is the good, the bad, and the evil. Yeah, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, there's some evil there, I guess. But the good, the bad, the ugly of John Kelly. Okay. And, from, recovering as a cocaine addict, becoming a profiler. So here I am. And, this book uh, gives everybody an up to date view and a hard look at John Kelly and where I came from, where I and again the addiction of serial murder. Um, I just can't talk enough about it because try to understand a person being addicted to taking another person's life, to have violent powers and sexual control over. It's just really incredible to have that type of an addiction. Majority of them do, and this is really, really, really hard stuff. It's hard stuff to take, but they're out there, and they all start off with hurting animals, animal cruelty, torturing animals, killing animals, and this is why I'm on your show today.
Mm-hmm.
because
Yes.
this is
Yeah.
really something I don't think that's talked about enough.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that. Just your perspective on why
Well,
that is and what, I don't know, even if there's anything we can glean from that as far as how to maybe help prevent people from starting to do this kind of thing later on in life and to progress.
usually it's going to start off in childhood, and that is the number one warning sign as far as I'm concerned. You're going to see, somebody, kicking the dog around, being very cruel to animals, maybe even killing animals at an early age. This is a major warning sign. And I think you'll bring it up later and talk about this fellow that's killing these kittens. Okay. This is a major warning sign that you have a child with a lot of rage who really is not feeling good about themselves at all. And they're taking out their anger on animals. And what happens is, as this progresses, they start to become desensitized to it and they just act out more and more. And from the serial killers I've spoken to, they said that, this is a really good exercise for them because by, killing smaller animals, it's helped desensitize them to killing, which are human beings, and they're very focused on this. They're very focused on, this whole ritual, if you will. And usually, you're going to find it. If you find a serial killer, usually you're going to find a turbulent, neglectful, abusive childhood, and you're going to find, this major mistreatment of animals, including, torture and murder of animals.
Somebody's asking the question, Melmac is asking the question, would that be killing of animals be disguised as hunting ever? Did you hear that
Would
question?
that killing of animals be disguised as hunting? Yeah, well, yes. Some of them do hunt, and they take great enjoyment out of it. I know one in particular I'm thinking about. I mean, he lived to hunt and hunted to live, but yet even going back before the hunting, at a very very young age, he was
Were you saying as he you just got cut off right at the end? So even going back a long time, he was before he was actually doing formal hunting. I guess he was harming animals and killing them. Okay.
yeah, oh yeah, killing and torturing, animals. I mean, he started very very early. In fact, he could even trace it all the way, being like 6 years old, 7 years old, and torturing insects and stuff. I mean, he just this particular serial killer is a sadist,
Yeah.
and I mean, he's away and he's doing consecutive life sentences. But I mean, he is no conscience, no sense of guilt or remorse. Nothing.
So, it actually brings up the case that you were alluding to before that there was somebody just yesterday actually that in I guess it was Illinois, he was arrested and charged he with animal cruelty. He admitted to a girlfriend that he enjoyed killing. I don't know what YouTube's going to do to this show, killing kittens. And it is actually, I'm not even, it's so sickening to think about, but we do need to talk. I think it's important to talk about. So, but he admitted to killing kittens and that he'd been doing it since he was, I think it said 8 years old.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So
About
what,
right. That's right. That's right.
you know, just the fact he would tell his girlfriend, like I was kind of surprised. Um, 'Cause
Mhm.
I think she's the one who turned him in. I'm not 100% sure on that, but what would make him think that that would be a good idea? Because I'm assuming he didn't do it out of like remorse, because he said he
Mhm.
enjoyed it. I don't know the conversation they had, but
Her, and he's on his way.
yeah, he's 22. So
Older, yeah, 22 years old. I mean, he is on his way, okay? And he's just testing her to see how much she can tolerate.
okay. Hmm.
A certain amount of these serial killers have had female accomplices too. So he may be just to see what her tolerance is and, kind of taunting her in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want to get deep into the psyche on him. I mean, do you really love me? You say you love me, but now I'm going to tell you this. See if you love me after I tell you this. Like he's testing, he's testing to see what her tolerance is. He's testing to see how much you really love him. She can stand, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but this fellow definitely should be kept an eye on. I mean, he's ritual, was into the ritual at 8 years old. By now, the fantasy. He's he has it by now. He's entertained a fantasy for many, many, many years, and now it is acting on the fantasy. Uh, I would something that's going on in his mind, and he may be thinking about, moving on from kittens. It's just not doing it for him anymore. It's kind of like one bag of heroin isn't enough anymore. My tolerance has gone up, so I need five. And again, can't move on to the become a fantasy killer. You know, and I have to learn suspected because he's innocent until proven guilty, like Koberger. I mean, this could be a you know he's appearing to be a fantasy-driven killer.
Right. In the case in Idaho, in case people aren't familiar, which most people, if you are on YouTube, you've heard of it. But interesting in that situation that there was a dog there. Uh, we talked about this a little bit when I was actually on John's show. So a lot of people came over from John Kelly's channel on YouTube, which is JohnKelly.
Yeah, yeah, we loved having you. Yeah, great.
Thank you so much. It was really a great experience, and everyone's great. And so many people came from your show. So I want to thank you and everyone who came over. But we did talk about that, how he didn't harm the dog that was there. That doesn't necessarily mean that he hasn't harmed other animals in the past. We don't know at all about that, but um, there was a dog
Mm.
in the home at that point in time. Um, whether he knew the dog was, present, we don't know. But um, it brings the question. So what do we do? Because you mentioned that this is somebody who should be kept an eye on, and we did a little bit of looking into this, like what is out there to protect our pets, society, us from these people who would do these things, and there's no universal like registry, and I was curious about that and actually came across this website with the ASPCA and their stance on that. And at first, I was surprised because they weren't actually advocating for a national registry, but then they made some excellent points as to why. And part of this you may be familiar with. There's a sort of like a
Mhm.
corrections way of, if they're tracking people post incarceration, for instance, or after maybe they didn't go to jail, but they have probation or what have you. They were actually just saying that it may be best to add on to that system. and um,
Hmm.
utilize that. For one thing, it would save a ton of money, but it's like it just keeps everything in one place too.
Hmm.
But when you say, monitor these people, or keep an eye on them, what is your thinking about that? Tell me more.
Well, I think that anybody that knows him, anybody familiar, should keep their ear to the ground, and if they hear something, say something. I think now that he's been in the media and people know about him and know about him killing these kittens. Um, if the,
Oh, we got a little bit choppy there.
okay, if he's um, women or children. It's interesting, kittens, not cats. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
A kitten's a cat, but
true.
instead
No,
of a bigger cat, he focuses on little,
really
helpless
good point.
kittens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that tells you something about him. So would this be the kind of guy that would be after women, or after helpless children, younger children? That would be similar, if you will. It's just my analytical mind how it works, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
going
Yeah.
back and forth with this, but again, I have to say that right now, that he's done anything else or will ever harm a human being. Maybe he's just a real kind of cowardly guy that can take it out on kittens, but you know uh, really is afraid to hurt other human beings. However, the way the ritual usually works is just then you'll see, and he would have probably gone through kind of other deviant kind of uh, behavior. Be a peeping tom. He'd be a voyeur, looking through windows, and then usually desensitized to that, and his tolerance goes up from there. So now instead of looking through windows, he wants to get up close and personal with a, usually a woman or a younger child, and do the deed. So it's just a very initial excellent warning sign as to possible future could be with a predator serial killer. Um, because they usually start with animals, and that's something else that drugged me. I mean, pulled me towards the field, um, because a big soft spot in my heart for animals,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh, we froze a little bit there. 2 o'clock is the
okay,
witching hour. Apparently, everyone's on the
I
other.
was in,
No,
I
you were
was
saying
I
that.
was in the go ahead.
No, we lost you
I
when you
I
were talking about
truly don't.
your soft spot for animals, and that's part of what drew you
Oh
in.
yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if you have any thoughts. I know the outlook isn't necessarily great, and I'm not up on the latest total research, but and I just for perspective or context, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Used to work with kids with some serious mental health issues, but um, so what are your thoughts on getting to kids young who are displaying anger, possibly even doing things that maybe, it's kind of hard to tell, like doing things to insects to some degree, I guess, I'm not saying it's okay, but maybe some children when they're young, they don't really understand yet that what they're doing. But what is your perspective on when to get help? When parents should start to um, think a little bit more of maybe we have a little bit of problem starting here. Maybe we need to get help in what they should do, who they should seek out.
Well, I think that it's important to, um, get them to a counselor, a mental health counselor, as soon as possible if they see, um, extreme rage or in a child, you're talking about excessive anger being misdirected on animals or even a child torturing insects or whatever. I mean, kids will be kids, but you don't know. I mean, insects are one thing, but when you move up to animals like dogs, puppies, cats, whatever, I mean, you're seeing some really misdirected um, anger coming out, and they should be in therapy to someone to try to find out what's at the root of this, this anger.
So, especially to be looking out for, your saying would be doing things to either insects or animals, but especially when it's coupled with anger. Like when you see that anger, there's
Yeah, the very fact that they're doing this is usually a projection of their anger, even though they may not know this. It's usually, you know, they want to. It's usually they um, hurt kids. We have a saying: "Hurt kids hurt people."
yeah.
Always, yeah, as a society, we always have to be on our game and you know ready to kind of child abuse that we see
Mm-hmm.
because hurt kids definitely grow up to hurt people.
And also, I think you said you wrote a book about this too. You had a second book that related to this too. This topic of
The My first book was over 20 years ago. Was warning signs, and in warning signs, I talk about internalized anger. And this is really just, it was kind of my swan song to, the social work field and heading into the anti-social work field. It
yeah, and
was,
that
you know, yeah.
I think you were starting to talk a little bit about that, and I was curious, how did you transition from going from working with, just sort of the general, population addictions and all of that to profiling?
I did my research and realized that serial murder was an addiction. And, you know, and I was positive of it. And I'm known for being the first person to head in that to come out with it and say it was an addiction. But um, then I decided, well, I think maybe I should move to another level and try to help bring out to the public about the child abuse that goes into the making of the serial killer, the making of the monster. And when we put our team together, we were focused on just getting the information out there and making the public aware of how dangerous child abuse can be and what it can create, the kind of monster it can create. But then also, we wanted to put the addictions profile together, as I mentioned earlier, and include it with the psychological and behavioral profiles that were out there, and give us a better opportunity to try and catch these guys as quick. Because if you talk to a drug addict, any drug addict, and you say, well, why are you using drugs? They're going to say, well, to get high. So you say, well, what does that mean to get high? Well, I want to feel good. Okay, so you're addicted to drugs to feel good, whatever that means. Right. Yeah, I am. Okay. So when you look at that of being addicted, not to drugs, but to killing people, you actually have a person that is killing to feel good. I mean, they get a lot of self gratification
Mm-hmm.
out of this. Okay, they get high. I mean, one guy told me himself, it's the highest of all highs. He told me that. Playing God. He's playing God. Okay. So when you take that all into consideration, I mean, you have to understand that if you don't catch them quick, they're just going to keep right on killing, and, I mean, some of them have cooling off periods. There's usually two types of serial killers use animals, okay, in childhood. That is usually a constant, okay. But you have two types of serial killers: those that they themselves who use substance and are addicted to substance, and then you have the ones that are not addicted to substance and don't use substance at all. They're very right. So usually the ones that are addicted to substance have no control mechanism which whatsoever, and so they go on and on and on, and these are the people like Green River a week or one a week. You had it in 4 weeks. Help chase him out of town there. But and we don't know wherever else he landed because nobody ever got arrested for the Atlantic City murders.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Hopefully, in time, we have a reward up. If anybody has any information.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is that if you don't move on them fast as quick as possible, a lot of damage and hurt a lot of people. And then not only do you have the victim that all the trauma that brings, and there's no such thing as closure. When a family there's no closure. I mean, they have a perpetual wound and cope with better over time, especially if they have other kids. But it'll never completely heal. It'll always be there. So it's very important to jump as quickly as possible in any which way you can to not only identify somebody that could become violent and get them acquainted with law like we've done to try and work with law enforcement or the media to try and catch some of the guys to try and give the cops a head.
Yeah, you just got a little cut off, but you're actually leading right into my next question because I know that We
Okay.
didn't talk too much about what you do with S.T.A.L.K, the organization you have. Maybe we could tell us a little bit more about that. I know you had a case in Canada
Hmm.
that was rather
Yes,
interesting.
STARK stands for System to Apprehend Lethal Killers. And it is the system that I've been talking about that we put together, where we've put together psychologists, psychotherapists, law enforcement, homicide detectives together on our team. And again,
Ah, the stupid internet.
we
We're
felt
losing.
was like, you losing me?
Yeah, I just lost about you. You said what the organization name is and that you work with who you work with, and then we lost you. As far as where it goes from there, we got who you work with, but not what you're doing exactly.
Yeah, we we try to work to get the word out on what type of person they might be looking for.
Okay. And so tell us a little about the
Mhm.
Canada case. You did a profile for that.
Yeah, the Canada case was very interesting. Somebody was butchering all kinds of animals and leaving them out to be found up in, I think it was Ontario, Canada, up around there. And we had done a show with um, the producer called me up and said, "This is going on up here. She's a real animal lover." He said, "All these animals are being found slaughtered all over, and I mean, 10 ducks here, uh, 20 whatever over here. I
Mm.
mean, any kind of animal. They're just being found all over. And it's like they were positioned to be found in a really publicly accessed area. Okay. So he was more or less taunting the public with, I'm a killer of your animals. Try and catch me or whatever.
Mm.
So we put a profile together on the information we had. Wasn't a lot that we gleaned from up there. We couldn't get a lot of information, but we got enough information, put a pretty decent profile together, and we put that profile out there. And that was a few years ago, and we had. It seemed he stopped. It seemed that, and I'm not saying it's because of us. I'm saying the more media attention he got, somebody probably had an idea who it was from earlier warning signs, like this, like people know who this killer of kittens is.
Mm.
So this guy could have been that type of person years earlier. Somebody
Mm.
remembered him, reported him to law enforcement, and maybe law enforcement was on this guy right away.
Okay.
It's not going on. Hasn't gone in years now.
That's so amazing that do you think that the person actually like how if there's this addiction component and maybe I don't know how are they able to stop or did they find another way to they're just not as obvious maybe.
That's a great question. That's a great question. And my thinking is, did he stop? Did he move out of the area? Because I don't think they can stop. Or did he move out of the area? Did he go to jail for something else and he's been in jail?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he progressing now and evolving to hunting human beings? Um, animals aren't doing it for them anymore.
Oh, goodness. So, I'm wondering also your thoughts on just adding, thinking about what makes somebody do this kind of thing. And I know that we're always learning about the brain. We don't completely understand. Mental health is not an exact
Mm.
science, and et cetera, et cetera. But I always like to think that it would be great if, as young people in this world, people could be educated about being more empathic with animals. And of course, as an animal communicator, I would love to see it be normalized to teach children that intuition that they have. A lot of children really are very good at animal communication. It's just sort of like trained out of them by society that it's weird, or they don't, no, that's just your anthropomorphizing. People don't say that word to them, but they tell kids, no, animals don't have feelings. But I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
Well, you've mentioned that to me before, and I've given that some thought. And there's three types of primary intake senses that human beings use. Visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, and it's picking up on vibes. The whole kinesthetic primary intake sense. I've done a lot of training in neurolinguistics,
Hmm.
so I truly understand this. And is from being a therapist, along with the work you do with the animals and being an animal intuitive, that you can pick up vibes. You can pick up vibes from people. And I'm sure there are people that pick up vibes from animals. Now, I've had animals 3 years now. And,
Yeah.
when something's kind of wrong. So, I think it's important to be open minded about this.
Mhm.
And I think there are people that are so sensitive that they can pick up on this. These are people that are really like very, very empathic. They have a lot of empathy. They really feel for others. In our field, I think you'll see a lot of that. Um, I think it depends on the person's sensitivity level. Everybody's different. Everybody, looks differently, dresses differently, doesn't have the same fingerprints. Nobody has the same DNA, you know. So nobody's wired the same either, And the neurotransmitters, really have a lot to do with how sensitive a person can be. Um, and I am never going to say that a person cannot communicate, with an animal, because don't we all communicate with our pets in some way?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
and it may be visual, but also too, I mean, I get this feeling, um, when one of my animals are sick.
Mhm.
Like I don't actually have to see it. I can just start to like get a vibe on it. I mean, and I think it's because, if you're living with a person or living with an animal, you spend a lot of time with them, and you just start to pick up, their
Mhm.
actual moods. I mean, animals have moods too, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I just think there's a lot more. Uh, a lot more research needs to be done in this area, because I think there's a lot more that will be discovered.
Yeah.
I mean, how come how anim-
Oh,
and
we lost that
uh,
question you just asked. How come? What was that?
I mean, how come animals can pick up on us? How about
Right?
a, a baby gets dropped in a zoo and a female gorilla picks up the baby like a child and
Right.
wants to give the baby back to its mother or take
Right.
care of the baby. I mean, would it,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, why do fawn a baby deer, just walk up to your house or something like that? I mean, I just think I just think it's much more research, and the proof in the pudding is dolphins and what dolphins have been taught to do
Mhm.
through interaction. Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually had an episode not too long ago, it was sometime this spring, about the recent research that they're starting to hypothesize what's going on in the brain with magnetic fields, and they're starting to be able to hone in a little bit more on what might be going on with telepathy, including telepathy with animals, with some experiments with animal behavior with each other. And so I think they are starting to. And what's always interesting to me is you you hear about people in law enforcement. They have a finely tuned gut. They have an instinct that they've developed. And sometimes I'm like, wouldn't these be the first people to acknowledge that exists? Like when they just have a gut intuition, this person's not right, or this I, I feel drawn to go look more into this area on this case. And I'm wondering if you actually see an openness that traditionally we don't think about as being what really is going on with people, detectives and law enforcement. If actually you do see that.
Yeah, I do see that gut feeling you're talking about. I think, um, law enforcement, especially law in the streets, and run into a lot of people, in the course of a day. I think that they have that gut feeling. Um, I don't know um, how much we have it. Uh, a good piece of it, but I also are very focused too. I mean, they may get the gut feeling from time to time, but they're very focused on what they see and the physical evidence that's available. You
Mhm.
know, they're looking for facts, not
Right.
feelings. And I'm a little bit more out of the box. I operate out of the box on that. You know, hey,
You
look
have
at we got
that?
a new. Yeah, well, hey, there you go. Yeah,
I
she heard me. She got a vibe.
and
Here,
we do
here,
we
here.
love having her, but she is a big kitty in a very small
You're not
space
kidding.
and can do a lot of
She's a
damage
big kitty.
and destruction.
She's a big kitty.
He's really big. Usually she's up here, so I don't know. Why don't you come up here, sweetie? That's a better spot for you. Um, I have to ask because I know we're running short on time and we're coming near the end, but I have to ask, what is the experience like for you on two levels?
Hmm.
One, just to be in the presence of or speaking with people who have committed some really horrendous acts. What is it like talking with them? And then also, there she is, as an animal. Well, I'll ask this question afterward.
Okay. First of all, a lot of people ask me this. They say, John, how could you do this? How could you constantly go into the mind of a serial killer? Right. And, the bottom line is it's one thing if you go into a serial killer's mind, it's another thing if you let the serial killer into your mind. Okay. I want to be clear about that. So you've got to go in there knowing that you're with a very, very evil person. I didn't know that. Usually, if their lips are moving, they're lying. So you got to be prepared for them to lie to you constantly. sometimes what kind of rapport, how much you get to know them. Okay.
Wait,
They
what was
know
that?
they are very,
We missed
I'm
that part.
sorry.
We got cut off there. What was that second part?
Yeah. The second part is that, you've got to be prepared for them to lie to you and give you a good line of BS, not take it personally. They'll test you, they'll try to get you angry at them. Um, but the most important thing is that you realize that you're with a very evil person for one reason or another, and not to have expectations that you're going to be getting the truth from them. And certainly being on your toes. You have to be hyper vigilant all the time when you're talking to them. I mean, you got to be locked, and lasered in, during that conversation. And in the beginning, there was some little bit of fear, but the way they have it set up in the prisons, you're usually talking through a wire or a window or a phone or something like that. I mean, at this point in time, this most of them that I spoke to were fantasy killers. These fantasy killers aren't interested in hurting me. They're not going to get any feel good out of that. Their fantasy and primary target is a woman. Okay, so I've had serial killers say, "Well, we don't want to talk to you, but we'd like to talk to your assistant." My assistant was a female when we were running around to the prisons, and I said, "No, I don't think so." So we'll skip it. They just wanted to try and manipulate her and and get their sexual kicks, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's talking to a person, and there's a person there, but there's nothing inside. It's like a robot. It's just this is my kinesthetic feelings kind of sense. Well, yeah, I mean, this is all superficial. This is just the way the person is. And they do evil things. Um, very, very evil things. And I think it's just feeling that you're around an evil entity in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can't imagine. So this is the second part of my question. Being an animal lover, do you just cut off when you have to listen to, or do they really go into any detail about their what they've done with animals?
I've never gotten specific with them on what they've done with animals. I will just ask them, "Did you kill animals or torture animals growing up?" And
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, "Yeah," and I'll just mark that. I'll just write that down. Because what I'm interested in why they have this fantasy to have ultimate sexual control and dominance over, a woman, over a female. And that's where I'm going to start to deep dive, try to deep dive into their psyche to see how that was created. Was it, is it possibly something genetic? Well, I'm not going to know that. I'm no, genetic expert in any way, shape, or form. So I have to look at the behavior they grew up with, and I got to look at the environment they grew up in, and as look at I can see what the relationship, usually the mother, but sisters, girlfriends, uh, being abused or tortured through ridicule at school. Like this Koberger claims
Hmm.
he was real fat, and when he was younger, and girls used to really pick on him in school and bully him. Right, so I'm looking for that. I mean, what caused this hatred? What caused this hatred? For women. Okay, that you have to have this kind of sexual control and dominance over them in order to hurt and kill them.
Hmm.
Where did this come from? And this fear, because what's interesting with a number of the serial killers I've talked to, I'll say to them, "Were you afraid of?"
Are you afraid of women? Hmm.
Yeah, in general, because they never had much of a dating life or social life with females,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And and they have a fear of women. Some of them have a fear of women. So the only way they feel they can be with the women, a woman, is to her knocked out or in some way, some kind of sexual relationships with that
Hmm.
particular woman. But normally they don't do social things with the opposite sex. They're not known for their dating skills
Yeah.
growing up.
Mel Mack asks, she wants to know at what age they start harming animals. Is there a roundabout age?
I would say probably anywhere between 5, and this is a guesstimate on my part, but I'm sure there's research out there that can be found on the internet. I think probably between 5 and 7, 5 and 8.
Hmm.
You'll start to see that misdirected rage.
Hmm.
You'll start to see that acting out. You know, and that's if you could get to a child early, you could probably save a lot of lives 20 years later, because by getting to that child early and getting that child the proper mental health treatment that they need and getting them a safe place to express their rage and anger, I mean, can prohibit. It's very possible it can prohibit them from becoming a violent predator later on.
Yeah, I know we talked a little bit too about the kids I used to work with. It's been a long time, but they used to go to a place. Sometimes they would go there and learn how to treat animals better as part of kind of their own therapy. I mean, I'm sure they're very cautious still about who goes and how far along things are, and there's a lot of supervision. But it was a really great place called Green Chimneys. It's just an interesting place to look into. People are
Mhm,
curious about
mhm,
that kind of thing. They had a whole. Um, I used to visit kids that we placed there after they went there, and sometimes before. So I've been up there, and it's like a almost like a farm kind of setting, and they live there. The kids go to live there, and so I think it's a great example of ways that we can get in there really early and try to
mhm,
change things. And it's not necessarily hopeless.
mhm,
Um, I'm sure there's cases where, unfortunately, things are really awry, and how much supervision can we give somebody during their life,
mhm,
without incarcerating them. But there's a lot of questions, and there are a lot of like moral and uh, logistical issues that come into play. Um, and I think you're right. I think there's evil. There's just a component of evil too that can come into play. I'm not saying the kids are
mhm.
evil. I'm just saying that sometimes in these situations that there's an element going on. It could be just in the home or as an adult, and that person has whatever they've gotten involved with or been exposed to is carried along with them, and now it's really just a part of them. But um, that's a whole nother topic, I guess. That's so. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you think that we should have, that we haven't touched on, or any questions we haven't asked that you think you'd want to mention before we end?
Well, I think that the evil is a show on unto itself. If you want to get into the kind of piece to this, to um, I think I call it evil energy, and it's something we can talk about and see if you feel you know it's, evil energy got into them somewhere in childhood and then just progressed internally, and then later on in life it built up internally with inside them through a lot of rage, and then it became volcanic rage, and then it exploded. So yeah, I'd certainly be interested in coming back, because I also feel, and I want to apologize to you and your audience, that you got cheated a little bit here today, because there was a lot of breaking up of the sound,
Well,
and
happens.
I'm if you wanted to have me back, I would be more than
Of
happy to
course.
come back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So,
it'd be great if
you
you're
know,
watching, you have questions. I'd love to have people send your questions, so that if when we have John back, we could have everyone's questions kind of ready to go.
oh,
Um,
that'd be smart, smart.
yeah, you can leave them in the comments section, and that's probably the easiest thing to do. And we'll start looking at those. You can also email me at Anne with an E at intuitivetouchanimalcare.com. Um, because I think that it's definitely, yeah, evil energy, great way to express. Interesting. Yeah, I definitely believe in that. That exists, and it can really get, as you said, like in people and just kind of grow and grow and grow, and they're feeding it too. So if they're doing any of these kind of harming of other beings, I think that it just gets fed on and it gets bigger and bigger. Um,
Well, it's the way they carry themselves too. And I'm you today. I can chameleons, okay, because I know they're evil when I'm going in to see them. I mean, they've killed people. They've killed many people. I'm going in to interview this guy. I know, he's no goody two shoes. This is so, but also how flat they can be when I'm with them in a, shall we say, caged kind of environment, because they can be themselves.
mm,
They can be themselves because they're doing life. They're doing life in prison.
mm-hmm.
So there's no sense or no reason for them to start to try to um, portray themselves in some other manner. However, when they were out and about and killing people, they could hide this evil chameleon, like how Ted Bundy, as evil as he was, worked on the helpline, the suicide line,
Yeah,
right? I mean, these, and how they can be very charming,
yeah.
very charming.
Politics and all that. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah,
Even
and,
with
and
girlfriend.
a number of them are like this. Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
and so you're dealing with an evil person that's really a chameleon, an evil chameleon. that can be charming as well in order to get you, to his control zone
Mhm.
or abduction zone where he can
Mhm.
control or abduct you or abduct you and then have you under control and then get you to what we always call the next scene, the next spot, the next vicinity, if you will. You know, it's this is how they operate, and
Mhm.
a lot of them ways, uh, some other con you and get you to the second destination, which is their
Mhm.
killing dominant.
Right. If you can, never go with them. If you can figure out what's going on in any, I guess.
Never go to the second location.
Yeah. Mhm.
Get it on right then and there.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the kill you. I will not hurt you. Just do what I tell you, and everything will be okay. I promise I will not kill you. Just do what I tell you. Well,
Yeah.
we saw up in Delphi how that worked, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah. Those.
so again, the evil chameleon and how they manipulate.
Yeah. And I mean, I know not everyone believes this, but I mean, I think that they're aided by that. If you have something that's beyond just the human, there's a supernatural component going on. Um, we don't know, the extent that can influence the victim, like, how much more power that gives the person. And I personally believe that that's there, that it's we have to protect ourselves, so um as much as we can. But I promised I wouldn't keep you too long today, and we've gotten so much from you. And I apologize because I don't know. Sometimes this just happens where there's like an internet strain. I know neither one of us, we did everything we could do on our ends to make sure we had a good connection and everything was set beforehand, but then it just sometimes happens. I do think sometimes it's because it's like during the work day or earlier, sometimes like maybe there's more people taxing the I don't know. I'm no electric person, but it's called electrician. My husband's probably dying right now as a person in that world. He's a contractor, but still. So but I want to thank you so much. And also, so again, everybody can find you on where again? Where I think Mel Mac was coming
Yeah,
up.
John Kelly profiler. We're pretty much on YouTube.
There we go.
We're not on every week. We'd love to have your subscriptions, any comments you have, but we're usually putting one out one every month. Right now, we're going to bring it down to one every 2 weeks. I don't like to be on unless I really have something to say because the stuff we're deep diving into is pretty scary and evil stuff, and I like to make sure we find it's interesting and educational, along with being so and we're just not going to be on YouTube talking about a case to talk about a case.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about it for a reason. For a
Right.
reason,
Yeah.
we're trying to find out who this person is, and we're trying to you know, get right into them because all guys watch the media in all forms to see if they're or knows where they're at, or they're trying to pick up any information they can on how close law enforcement can be to them, So they go on YouTube, they watch national television, they watch cable television, they watch various news items in the media on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
They watch everything
Yeah.
to try to figure out how close people are getting to them, and we know they want you to.
Mm-hmm.
And when anybody's reporting on them, just to see if they know anything really about them, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So for different reasons. So,
Well, your shows are great because
so
they come from a professional standpoint. You have the insight. You're not just kind of like regurgitating news clips and chatting. You're actually giving some education, some real good education. So check out John Kelly Profiler here on YouTube and also his book. That can be found,
Lazarus, discovering Lazarus,
and that's on Amazon.
Amazon.
Amazon, you can find that. Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much for being here. And if anyone's interested in animal communication, acupressure, massage, anything to do to help animals, and I've expanded the channel just to kind of bring in a little bit more about the human element too, the pet parent. Um, so we talk about all that stuff, how to support the pet parent, including some things that I do as an integrative coach with some new techniques that are out there that I'm using with people. So you can also find that out on my website, intuitivetouchanimalcare.com. And I also want to mention, and I've mentioned this here and there, but I don't know how much it's gotten out there. If you're somebody who has experienced, been through something where your pet or a pet that in your family has been the unfortunate victim, which includes witnessing something like we've talked about today, the harm to a loved one. I do, in some cases, offer no charge services around that. So you can reach out to me. And that includes helping the animal to some degree, helping people short term with that. And I don't, that's pro bono. So it's Anne with an E at intuitivetouchanimalcare.com. You can find me directly there. So thank you so much for being here, John. I know this was a great show. There's a lot of interest in this topic, and let's keep our pets safe, do what we can, and just try to be mindful and be more aware, and try to help, especially these kids who we can get them when they're young, and hopefully intervene. And not that we're trying to put labels on them, but just to compassionately and thoughtfully do things to help. So
And I'd like to thank you all so much. Thank you so much, Ann. I truly appreciate
my
your
pleasure.
audience. I want to thank your, allowing me in. Sorry again if there was any on our end of it. I'm sorry if there was any of the
Uh,
mishaps with the audio. But anyway, thanks again, and God bless.
God bless everyone. Take care and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Rub my belly, rub my belly.